The Big Dig project aimed to replace the elevated highway cutting through Boston with an underground expressway and connect South Boston with its northern harbor. However, the project was plagued by cost and schedule overruns, use of substandard materials, litigation battles, and even the death of a motorist.
We will focus on two particularly serious incidents: the supply of substandard concrete by contractor Aggregate Industries and the use of Powers Inc.'s faulty epoxy. Because failure of concrete structures could lead to catastrophic incidents, concrete must meet numerous government-imposed standards, ranging from strength, air content, delivery methods, and more to ensure public safety. Thus, when the main concrete supplier, Aggregate, provided at least 5,000 truckloads of concrete that did not meet government-regulated specifications, consequences may have been dire. Aware of this, Aggregate employees falsified records to hide the substandard performance.
In 2006, a 24-ton concrete ceiling panel fell, killing motorist Milena Del Valle. Investigation revealed that the epoxy supplied by Powers, used to hold the roof in place, was in fact not appropriate for long-term bonding. In these cases, several sections of the Code of Ethics are breached. Both failed to remain honest with their employer, showed disregard for public welfare and fidelity, and demonstrated a lack of professional integrity through their irresponsibility. More severely, they are likely guilty of several acts of professional misconduct through negligence and/or malice. The companies fail to make reasonable provision for the safeguarding of life, report situations that very well put the public in danger, and comply with standards of the materials used.
Consider their dilemma. The project is already behind schedule, overrun with costs, and receiving heavy criticism. Additional costs and schedule delays would not be well received. Their response was to cut corners by supplying substandard material and cover up its performance, disregarding any sort of ethical conduct. The consequences of such misconduct revealed themselves during the project. Both contractors were forced to pay tens of millions of dollars in damages.
If, as an employee, we are faced with such a dilemma, it would be advisable to approach the provincial or state regulatory body, like the PEO, about the conduct of the company and the risk associated with their actions. This was the course of action of one Big Dig employee, whose whistleblowing initiated the investigation of Aggregate. It begs the question, what failures in the tunnel may have occurred if this individual did not speak up?
From a legal standpoint, the faulty epoxy case is an example of tort, where the victim was killed due to the wrongdoings of Powers Inc. Tests of epoxy indicated it was unsuitable for its intended use, but this was ignored. The defendant owes the plaintiff a duty of care. This was breached when the concrete slab fell due to the failure of the epoxy. It is reasonable to foresee that such a failure could lead to harm, and the Donahue versus Stevenson case sets an example of this legal precedent. The family of Del Valle sued Powers Inc. for the aggravated nature of the damages, and were paid a $6 million settlement. Powers Inc. had also paid $16 million in punitive damages to the state to settle manslaughter charges.
Similarly, misrepresentation occurred when Aggregate falsely represented their product's quality. Investigation proved it was done with the intention to deceive their contract partner, causing the MTA to take action. The MTA issued an indictment on Aggregate, suing for damages. The civil dispute was settled for $42 million in consequential damages, $8 million in criminal fines, and $75 million in insurance coverage.
Note that this differs from the Dairy versus Speak case, because Aggregate knowingly falsified records. They had no reason to believe their concrete met standards, and attempted to cover it up.
The severe punishments in these cases is purposefully done to discourage future parties from attempting similar actions. Particularly in Ontario, engineering practice is heavily regulated to avoid these potential disasters as much as possible.
This is why the Code of Ethics and Guidelines for Professional Conduct exists. If the contractors were to have abided by these standards and upheld their duty to the public and their employer, many grievances could have been avoided.